Hi, welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In the second part of this bookkeeping tutorial, we're going to be using OpenOffice Calc to create an invoice template. So in the first part of the tutorial, we created this document called an invoice tracker. Let's just quickly look at this and recap it again. And we created this spreadsheet, and in this spreadsheet we had an invoice date. So this was the date that we sent the invoice out to our customer. We had an invoice number, and each one of these was a unique number. This is quite important. We had a date that the customer paid us. We had how the customer paid us, whether they paid via bank transfer, check, or cash payment. We had a payment reference. So if it's a bank transfer, normally on your bank statement it will have a reference, and that's what your customer would put in there. So when they do the bank transfer, they may use your account number, or they may put their company name. It could be various payment references that they put in when they do the bank transfer. But it's worth documenting that because it makes it a little bit easier to find on your bank statement if you need to locate that particular payment at a later date. Although you've got the date here as well, which is quite useful as well when they paid. We also had check payment, and when a customer sends you a check in the post, you have something called a paying in book, and inside that paying in book you'll have these slips, and each slip will have a unique number as well. So we can keep track of our check payments that are coming in, and when we put them into our account we can use this payment slip as the reference here. And cash, we just put cash payment. You could put a date in here as well, but you've got the date here when they've paid the cash to you, so it's kind of one of the same things. You just write cash payment here. The next thing we documented was a description of the job done, and I've just put brief descriptions in here like logo design, but you could have been a bit more descriptive in here. I was just showing it as an example. When I use this document in my business, sometimes I write quite a long description just to keep the information in there about what this particular job was. So you can write them short, or I would advise you to be as descriptive as possible. And if for any reason, if we typed in something like logo design for let's say leaflet distribution company, something like this. Let's just get that spelling right. So we did some sort of logo design for a leaflet distribution company. You can see that you can't really read all of the text on here, but when you click on it, you can read it all up here quite clearly what this particular piece of text in here was. So don't worry about stretching this to see it all. It's not important that you can see it all, because you can easily click on the cell itself to read what is in that particular cell at any point in time. You can be as descriptive as you want in here. Next thing we wanted to know was which company are we sending the invoice to. That's quite important. And how much are we sending for? How much was the invoice amount, and whether it's been paid or not. So every time you look at your bank statement and you see one of your customers has paid the invoice, you'd come back into the spreadsheet, highlight the row, turn it into green, then you put in the payment reference, the payment type, and the date that they paid. And then you can almost forget about that for a little, don't totally forget about it, but forget about it, because you don't got to chase this customer no more. But if we move down to row 18, we can see we sent an invoice on the 24th of the 1st, 2014. This was the invoice number, and it was for website design. It was to a company called ABC Company, and it's for £995. And it happens to be, I don't know, maybe you're looking at this spreadsheet and it's 7 or 14 or 30 days later, and this invoice still hasn't been paid. It's marked in blue, so you can easily go and call that customer and say, we've sent you this invoice, it hasn't been paid, please make payment. That's a good way of tracking your invoices. And you can also do other functions in here. Maybe, I think the very, very last tutorial I'll do is an overview of this spreadsheet again. But you can do calculations and work out how much you've generated in a certain period of time and stuff like this. I showed that in my first example. So that's all I really want to say about this particular document. We looked at this in the first tutorial. So in this second tutorial, I want to go and create a new spreadsheet. And this particular new spreadsheet is going to be our invoice template. So let's first of all save the document. It's always good to do that. So we're going to go to File, Save As. And when we did the first tutorial, we created this invoice tracker. We created an invoices folder and an archive folder. And in this invoice folder, let's just delete this. We need to create a new folder called master template. And inside of this master template, we're going to save our invoice template, and we're going to call it invoice template 01. So if we make a new type of invoice template, we change the design or anything like that, we can call it template 2, template 3, and we keep this master template in this particular folder, and we're gonna copy it and use it many times to create all of our invoices. We're going to see that a little bit later. So I'm going to save this document, and the first thing I want to do is in this first cell, I just want to type in the word invoice template. That's all I'm going to do, is just type in invoice template here. I'm going to save this, and there's one sort of little bug that I found in OpenOffice. I couldn't find a way of showing the page breaks to show where these pages, this will kind of make sense. If you go to File and then Page Preview, you'll see this word invoice template here. You see sheet 1 and page 1 written down at the bottom. When you close it, you see these grey lines, and these grey lines represent the maximum area for the page. If you put any content in this section here, it's not going to print out on the page. This is going to be a second page. So this grey line here, it's quite hard to see. I don't know if you can see that a bit clearer. It's like a darker line here. Next to this G column here, between G and H, is a dark line, and that represents, here you might be able to see this clearly, so this will be one page here. And what I found is that if you don't type anything into the document, these lines don't show, and I found no other way of getting them to show apart from that particular method I just showed you there. Go to File and then Page Preview. So we're going to go back to this Page Preview, and we're going to do something. We're going to go to the Format page, and in here we're going to set all of the margins to 1. So we want to try and get as much space as possible to get content into our document. And we're going to go to the header and turn it off, and we're going to go to the footer and turn it off. So what will happen is this was a 2 centimeter gap here, and it's going to be a 1 centimeter gap now, and this sheet 1 and this page 1 is going to get removed. So we're going to click OK. You can see that. Now we've got much more space to work with. So I'm going to close this now. We don't need this anymore. It's preview. I'm going to close it, and we've got a bit more space to work with now. And we can delete this word invoice template. So let's just delete this. We've got a blank spreadsheet now. And the next thing we want to do is we want to start designing our invoice template. So one thing we need to do, let's just try this 1 second here, is we need to stretch this column slightly. So we're going to move this column out a little bit, just so that it sits. It's a little bit tricky to see, but this H column, we're going to move it so it sits just almost in between, almost on this little line here above this font selector here. So you can see when I hover over it, there's this little line that appears here. This is going to be our maximum width. We can maybe move it a little bit more. If you move it too far, you'll see that this line jumps back to this position here, this line separator. So it needs to sit around here, just underneath this letter A, to the right side of it, somewhere like that. That would be good. Something like this would be good. So what we want to do next is create this header for our template. And what we're going to do, you need to go to, let's just check this again. We need to go to, now there's an option in here that I used, let's just check this. Okay, it's this button here, show draw functions. So up here on the toolbar, you need to make sure this is selected, otherwise you won't see the draw options down here at the bottom, down here. So let's just click this again, here. Now you can see them, these little drawing tools. We're going to be using these drawing tools. On this sheet 1, we need to right click here and rename it to invoice template. We should just name it anyway. Just call it invoice template, that's fine. Let's save this. I'm going to click on this text tool, and I'm going to move my mouse cursor to the top right of this corner here, and I'm going to drag out, and I'm going to drag out to about halfway on this F column, about this much here. I'm going to use, yeah, let's say about here, and it's going to show me this box, and I'm going to right align the text. So I'm going to click right align, and I'm going to type in, we're going to make this company name up, so let's just call it, this is the business name, this is your business name, so I'm just going to call this company Hello World Limited, and we need to put an address in. I'm going to make this up. So this is your company name and this is your business address. I've just made these details up, and below this we want to put also a telephone number. It's going to put, you put your real telephone number in here. It's going to make one up. And we want to put an email. Email is kind of optional, but I think it's good to put an email in here as well. It won't hurt. So that's all we need to do, and this becomes a floating panel. So really what you want to do is just reduce, in fact what we want to do is double click in here. So if you click out of it, when you click back onto it, you want to double click and then select the text, and then you want to change it to a different font type, and I would suggest you use Arial font. It's nice and clean and easy to read. So you can pick any font you want, but you want all of your fonts in your document to be consistent. So if you're following the previous tutorial, we used Arial in that one as well, so we might as well use Arial here as well. So that's our company address that's going to sit in the top corner. Let's just save this and we can see this page preview. This is where our address is going to sit for our business. So that's fine, that's good, that's what we want. Also what we can do is just reduce this the height of this slightly, maybe. Let's try and do that. We need to get rid of this extra line space here, so let's delete this line space, and we just want to keep it as taking as much space as least space as possible. We don't want to take too much space here. Okay, next thing we want to do is highlight. We actually want to left click on this cell here, so we're on row 10 right now. In fact, we'll do this on row 9. So we're going to left click on row 9, the first cell, left click on this row 9 cell here, this A cell, row 9, and we're going to drag all the way across holding the mouse button down. We're going to highlight this whole row. And we're going to go to this tool here, the border tool, and we're going to put a line, this line here, so this second row, first option. And what this does is draws a line here, you see? And when we go to our page preview, it's just going to draw this line to separate the header from the content below. Let's save this. So we probably want to put a logo in here, our company logo. At some point we're going to want to put our company logo into here. That's quite easy to do. I don't really have my, we can close this spreadsheet, we don't need this one for the minute. I'm just going to try and find I'll just see if I can get a hold of my logo. Here's my logo. It's a pretty small version. This is here we can get a logo from one of my portfolio for now, some temporary one. I'm just going to use this logo as an example, but you will have your own logo. You can put your own logo into there. I'm just going to use, this is only a temporary example. We need to put a real proper logo in here, but I just want to show you how to do that. But this logo, you know, there's a bit of a problem with this logo. It's got, if I show it to you, it's got too much white spacing. There's too much white spacing at the top and at the bottom here. So I need to do some editing to this logo. Really, this is kind of beyond the scope of this tutorial, but in order to show you this, I have to do this properly. I'm just going to open up my image editor, and we're going to do a little bit of work on this logo quickly, just to make it the right design. I'll explain why. So I'm going to drag this into my editor. And if you've got your own logo, what you need to do is contact your graphic guy, whoever's done your logo, and ask them to get rid of as much white spacing as possible from the logo. You want to reduce the white spacing around the logo. So I'm just getting rid of all of this white spacing here. See, I've got very little white spacing at the top, at the bottoms and the sides. You just want to get rid of all the white spacing as possible, because we want it to fit as closely as possible and minimize the amount of space it takes. So you need to contact your graphic guy and ask him to do that little job for you, or do that. You can do that in Photoshop or in a GIMP tutorial. So if you're not sure, what I suggest you do is get your logo, and what you can do is go to YouTube, /user/DCP Web Designers. That's my YouTube page. Go to videos and have a look at this tutorial, how to crop an image using Photoshop, or how to crop and resize an image using GIMP software. So this is probably the free piece of software that you want to follow this tutorial here. If you have Photoshop, you can do it in Photoshop using this one here as well. But I'll suggest you follow this this particular tutorial that will show you how to get your image like this using free software. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll see we have now a different version of that logo, and it's a bit hard to see, but it's got very little white spacing around it now. And the reason we did that is when we drag and drop this logo in here and we resize it, let's get rid of this. When we resize it, and to resize this logo, let's just do that one more time. When I drag and drop it into here, it's very large, and to resize it, I'm holding down the shift key and then dragging my mouse to keep it constrained, so it doesn't, if you don't do that, when you drag it, it's gonna get squashed or stretched or some problem there. So you want to hold down the shift key, and we want that logo to be something like this, just here. So I hope that made sense. It's slightly out of the scope of this particular tutorial. This is about image editing and stuff like that, but if you've got a good graphic designer, or you know how to cut images or crop your logo, then that's a good example of how to do that. Just make sure it fits in there nicely without too much white spacing around it, because you've got to remember it's on a white background anyway. So let's just save this and we'll preview it, and you'll see it looks nice and clean now on the template, and there's not big white gaps at the top and the bottom. That would just be a waste of space. We don't want to do that. So I hope that made sense, and let's just move on now. So the next thing we want to do is highlight this row number 10 with our mouse. So we're going to left click on this first cell and drag it all the way across, holding down the left mouse button, and we're going to highlight this whole row of data. And then we're going to right click on this, and we're going to go to format cells, and in format cells we're going to set the left margin, the right, the top and the bottom margin to 1.35. so change the 0 to a 1. That's all you've got to do, and click OK. And then in this first cell here, we're going to type in invoice number, just here, and in this cell here we're going to type in invoice date, like this, with two little dots and a space. And in fact what we want to do here is we want to highlight these three cells, and we're going to click this button. It's called merge cells, and it basically, what it's going to do is make all of these 3 cells into one cell, and we're going to do the same here. So we're going to highlight, in fact we don't actually need to do it on this side, we need to do it on this side only. So when we click on this cell, you can see it's a much bigger block now, and we're going to right align it. We're going to right align it to the right, and we're going to type in a temporary date here. So let's type in the 1st of the 1st 2014. This is like a placeholder, let's call it. And the invoice number, if we check on our previous tutorial, we gave all of our, in the spreadsheet, we gave each invoice had a unique number. So it's DCP 2014-001. So the DCP part was your company name, this was the year, and this was the invoice number, the unique number. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste it in here, right here. So this will be our temporary invoice number. Remember, this is just a template, a temporary, a master template. So we're going to change these details. The date and the invoice number will change for every invoice that we generate. So the last thing I want to do is highlight this row. So let's highlight this row of data using our mouse. We're going to click the B button to make it bold, and then we're going to select this option here. It's on the 2nd row. So it's in this border section here. We're going to click the little drop down arrow, the 2nd row, and the last option here. And this is going to draw a border around this particular piece of information. Let's save it, and let's check what it actually looks like. Page preview. And here, you can see our logo, our address, the line to separate the header, and then we've got an invoice number and our date in here. Cool, that's done. Let's save this. The next thing we want to do is put in a billing address and a delivery address. We need to be able to tell our customers, or the invoice needs to state who we're billing, so the address that we're billing to, and also the delivery address as well. So what we do here is let's go ahead and select we're going to left click on row 12, and we're going to go down to row, let's do that again. Left click on row 12, hold the mouse button down and go down to row 20. And then we're going to move across to the D column. So we're going to highlight this section here from 12 down to 20 up to the D column, this piece of section here. And what we'll do is we're going to go and draw a border around this section here like this. We're going to have this border, and we're going to select the other side, this section here, and we're going to draw another border here as well. We're going to have 2 sections here. It doesn't matter if they're slightly different sizes, it's not that important. The next thing we'll do is we're going to select the whole of row 12. So we're going to move the mouse across and select the whole of row 12. And we're going to right click, we're going to go to format cell, and we're going to go to borders, and we're going to set this to 1 as well here, and click OK. And in this first section we're going to write billing address, and in this second section we're going to write delivery address. And we can go ahead and select all of these rows again, and we can make them bold. And the last thing we want to do while that is selected is draw another box border around it like this. So let's save that and let's check it. So now we've got a billing address on this side, and we've got a delivery address on this side. Sometimes you've got to remember, when your customer orders from you, they may have an address in, I don't know, central London. That's where they want, their head office is in central London. That's the billing address. But the delivery needs to be delivered to their East London branch or their East London office. So this will be the delivery address on this side. In my business, I don't really have a delivery address because I sell websites and logo designs and business card designs. All of my stuff is digital, so I don't really deliver physical products. All of my stuff is virtual. I send it via email or via the internet somehow. But if you're running a business where you're selling a physical product, then your delivery address may be different from the billing address. So you need to speak to your customer. Where do you want the bill to be sent to, and where do the products need to be delivered to? If you're running an internet business, then that might not be so important if it's a web-based sort of service. But if you're selling physical products like exclusive interior, if you're selling chairs or something like this, office furniture, then you need a different delivery address and billing address. They may be the same. You just put the same details in both of them if they're the same. So the next thing we want to do is come back down to this text tool, and we're going to drag from this left hand side a box here, and we're going to put in a temporary, just a made up delivery address. So we call this, we need to put the company name in first that we're going to be sending this invoice to. So as an example, let's just check our spreadsheet, and that will be the company name, ABC Company. That's the first invoice on here, so that's the company we'll put in there as a temporary example, because these details will change as we create more invoices. So we'll say ABC Company. We've got to make up a street, so number 4. Just going to make up these details. You can put any details you want in there as well. And we need a delivery address as well. So we're going to click on this text tool again down here, the one with the T. We're going to drag on this side as well. Let's just drag that, fill this box here, and we're going to put another address in here. It's going to be ABC Company, and let's just say that we're delivering to a different address in this example. It could be the same address as the one on this left hand side. You might be billing and delivering to the same location. So let's select this text here. We're going to select this text and we're going to change it to Arial. Got quite a lot of fonts here, but you just need to pick whatever font you like, but keep it consistent. So we're going to make this Arial, and we also need to do the same on this side. So double click in here and then select Arial as well. And I think we're going to make this font slightly smaller. So what you need to do is double click on this and then select it and make it font size 10. You can leave it that size if you want. Double click on this one, select it, make it font size 10. And I think this is kind of sitting a bit close to this edge here. Can you see? We want really these letters, this A, B, C, D, we want it to align with this, like this letter B here. So what we're going to do is just reduce the size of it slightly and drag it across. Let's just drag it so that it sits aligned here like that. It's a little tedious, but may as well make it look good. We'll have to do this once. That's it. Let's save this and let's check it. That looks good. To zoom, when I'm zooming in here, I'm holding down the control key and I'm using the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So just to let you know how I'm doing that. I think they could come down a little bit. They're a little bit too close to the top, and this one's slightly offline. You can see there's more of a gap on this one. So let's just move it down slightly. I'm just going to move this one up a little bit. let's save this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think that's a bit better. This one needs to move to the right a little bit. Just a touch. Let's save this. Preview it again. It looks pretty good now. So it's a bit tedious, but it's worth doing and getting done right, and then you know it's going to save you a lot of headache afterwards. So I'm going to close this. Let's save what it's already saved. Let me zoom back out. So to zoom in here as well, you hold down the control key and you can zoom in and out using the mouse wheel. You can also zoom using this function down here as well. If you don't have a mouse wheel for any reason, you can use that as well. Okay, so the next part we want to create is going to be where we display all of our invoice information. So what we want to do here is select this first cell, and we're going to move over to this D column. So we're going to select these four here, and we're going to use this merge cell, and we're going to select the one below it, all four of them, and we're going to merge this as well. And we're going to keep repeating this down this spreadsheet. It's a little bit of a tedious job. We only have to ever do it once, but we're going to, when I highlight them, you can see that this is where we're going to put in our descriptions for our invoice, and we need quite a few of these. We're going to go down quite a few rows to make sure we've got enough space to get all of our information in about what jobs we've done or what products we've sold. So this is going to take a little second to do. It's quite boring, but we don't have to do this very often. Just have to do it this once. And I think I'm going to go down to about row 37. So I've got from row 22 to row 37. I think that's going to be enough to get descriptions and all of the invoice information into there. That should be fine. Now I'm going to click on this row 22 right here, and I'm going to drag my mouse all the way to the left. I'm going to come down to this row 37 here. In fact, we'll come down to row 38. We're going to do this extra one as well. So we're going to highlight all of this block here. We're going to right click and go to format cell, and we're going to set the margin, this margins to 1.35, and click OK. Okay, cool. Now what we want to do is select everything again, but only up to row 37, not 38. We're going to leave this one blank. So we're going to select all of these here, and we're going to go to our border tool, and we're going to select this option here, the third row down and the very last option. This is going to draw a border around all of the content in these cells. Then what we want to do is select only these two here, just these two cells on row 38, and we want to do the same again. We're going to save this, and we're going to preview it, and you're going to see you're going to have a description, and you're going to have a quantity, you're going to have a unit cost, and you're going to have a total. In fact, I think we did one thing wrong here. Let's close this. This is slightly wrong. We need to merge these two cells here. We're going to merge. So you're going to highlight this 23 and the row next to it as well, these two here. You're going to click this twice now, because you're going to unmerge them and then remerge them again. So that's my fault. We have to do this bit again slightly, but it won't take long. This just gives us a bit more space for our description, and also yeah, that's right now. So it's really in that the first part of that example, we should have selected from row 22, but we should have selected from A, B, C, D, and E. We only selected the D column. We should have selected the E column. Or you can just repeat this, what I've just done here now, to fix it. Let's just save this. Now, in this first field here, we're going to type in description. In this second field here, this one, we're going to type in quantity. In this one here, we're going to type in unit cost, and in here we're going to type in subtotal, and we're going to highlight these three here. We're going to center them, and we're going to make them bold. Let's click center and bold. Okay. Now, as an example, I want to show you an example, a good example of this. So let's just say that we did a logo design for a company. So this is stuff that we want to build to a company because this is work that we've done. And in this example, we did one logo design, so we did one. Let's select this quantity column and let's left align it. In fact, let's select all of these here, all of this block here, and we're going to left align all of them. Left align. All the data on the left. So we did one example of a logo design, and to do this one example, we charged the customer, let's say, £60. So what we need to do next is to tell the software that these are going to be currency values in here. So we need to select this cell here, move across and drag all the way down to this row here. So we're going to select this block up to row 37, but just these G and H column sections. We're going to right click, format cell, go to numbers and select currency, and you can select whichever option you want, but as default you should really use this option here. And click OK. Then it's going to show it at £60. And then we need to do the same for this very last cell down here. So we're going to right click, format cell, and we need to change that to a currency as well. And click OK. There's a reason for that, I'll explain. Now, in this second example, we're going to say we did, in this second row, we did another job. It was business card design. And we did 4 examples of a business card design, and for each example we charged the customer £25. So 4 times 25 should equal 100, 1 times 60 should equal 60. And we're going to use a formula to calculate the subtotals here. So what we're going to say is we're going to type in the equal sign, and we're going to say this is column F, and this is 23. So this is F, this cell here is F23. So we're going to say F23, and then we're going to use the star sign. So you hold down the shift key and press number 8, and it puts in this star, which is actually multiplication. So it's going to times, and we're going to times it by G23. G23. And we're going to hit enter, and it's going to say it's 60. 1 times 60 equals 60. F23 times G23. This is F23 and this is G23. And we're going to click on this cell here and we're going to drag down. So if you look in the corner here, we've got this little black box. We're going to drag it down 1 row. And this copies this formula down, and then it says, when it copied the formula, it says F24 times G24. This is F24, this is G24. 4 times £25 equals 100. So it will do the maths for us quite quickly. And we could type in website design. This is a different job we did for the customer, and we're billing them all in the same invoice. And we did one job there, and it was for let's say £595, for example, and we can just copy that down there. And let's say we did one more last job. We did let's just say we did some sort of social network designing their Facebook and their Twitter pages and stuff like this, and we worked on 6 social networks, and for each social network we charged 45, and then we can just use this drag down and it will give us the total, the subtotal here. So that's good. We can keep filling out this spreadsheet with different jobs, how you lay this out, you could have put everything on one line if you wanted to, but it's nice to break it down and show it quite accurately what figures are in here and what they mean. It's quite nice to do it that way. So the last thing we want to do here quickly is we want to write down here total, and we're going to select this cell, we're going to right align it and make it bold, and then when we click on this cell here, we want to left click here and drag all the way up to this cell here. So from this bottom cell up to this where it's got the 60 on here, and then we're going to use the sum tool. We're going to click sum, and it's going to add the 60, the 100, the 95, 595 and the 270. It's going to give us the total down here, and we're going to make that bold as well, and we're going to make it left aligned. Let's save this and let's preview it. So now we're getting more of a detailed invoice. We've got the logo, we've got the business, our business address, we've got an invoice number which is unique and a date which is unique, and the invoice number will change on every single invoice you send out. The invoice date may be the same day or a different date. We've got the customer's billing details and we've got the customer's delivery details. And sometimes the delivery details are not applicable, so you can just write not applicable in here if you're not delivering a physical product. Down here we've got a description of the job, we've got a quantity, a unit cost and a subtotal, and then we've got the grand total down here, what the customer actually needs to pay. So there's a few things to finally finish off on, and what we need to do now is to put in our banking details, because we might as well tell the customer if they want to pay via bank transfer, then we might as well give them the details now. It just makes life a little bit easier for them. So we're going to, on this row 40, we're going to click here and we're going to drag across to this row here, row 40, columns A, B, C, D, E and F. We're going to select those ones there, and we're going to drag down 1, 2, 3, oops, let's do that again. We're going to go from this row 40, drag across, and we're going to drag down 1, 2, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to need about 5 rows. So we're going to select this section here. We're going to right click on it and we're going to go to format cell, and we're going to go to borders, and we're going to set the margin to 1.35 for all of these, 1.35. If this synchronizes ticks, it will do it for everything basically. And click OK. And then we're going to draw a border around all of this content. So we're going to have a border around all of it, and we're going to select this first column, first row, and we're going to draw a border around that as well. It's almost got like a box with a title that can go across the top. And in this title we're going to say, please make payment to the following bank accounts. And we're going to select that and make it bold. Let's just save this. Let's preview it. So it sits okay there. And we're going to put our banking details in here. I'm just going to make some up for now, but you put your real bank details in here. The first thing you need to do is put in the business name. So the name that the payment's going to be sent to, the business name. We're going to put in the bank name. We're going to put in the account number. And we're going to also put in the sort code. This is pretty much what most people will need in order to do a bank transfer to you. We're going to select all of these and make them bold. And then in here, we're going to put in, it's really our company name, so it's going to be Hello World Limited, and the bank name will be Bank of X. Bank of XY. I'm just making up this bank name. You put your real bank name in here. You'll put your real business name in here. I'm just going to make up an account number. put your real account number in here and the sort code. Normally sort codes are separated with hyphens like that. So we'll select all of this. It's thinking it's a date actually. So let's select we'll select all of these 4 rows. We're going to right click on them, format cell, go to number and change it from number to text and click OK. Let's try that again. 12 45. Then it treats it as text, because if you type this in like this format, it thinks it's a date. It's not a date, it's not a number, it's just a sort code. So you need to select them all, format them and change them to text type to make sure it recognizes it as a text value, not a date value here. So let's save this and let's preview it one more time. And probably we can get rid of this gap, this here. We don't really need this here. So let's get rid of this extra column here. It might make it look a bit better as well. So we're going to select these 4 here, and we're going to go to border and tick this top option. And that will remove the borders from here. We're going to select these 3 now, or these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5. And we're going to select this option here, right border. And that's going to draw a line down the side here. Let's save this and check it one more time. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, we're getting there. So the next thing we want to put in here, quite simply, is our payment terms. So payment terms. Please make payment on invoice within 30 days. Or you can put whatever you want in there. If you want payment terms of 14 days, 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, it's down to you. It's down to what you negotiate with your customers. But normally you try and stick with a value for everyone if possible. I normally do about 14 days or 7 days payment terms, or it depends really what the job is. If it's a big job, I normally take a deposit first before I even do anything. So it really depends on what the job is. We can make that bold. It's quite important information. Let's save this. We should also right click on here, go to format cells, go to borders and set this to 1.35 as well. And in fact we can just highlight it just to make it look a little bit better. We can draw a border around it. So let's draw that border, this one here, around this box. Let's just preview. We've got our payment terms here. We need to put one last piece of information. Normally you'd put your company number at the very bottom. So on this very last cell here, I'm going to type in company number. I'm just going to make up a company number. You put your real company number in here, and I'm going to right click on that format cell and set that to 1.135 and click OK. And then I'm going to highlight this whole row, and I'm going to do a top line here, top line. Use this this second row first option here, this one right here, and that's going to draw a line across the top. And you can preview it. So you can see it's off the template, it's not showing. So what we need to do is select row 48, right click on it and delete it, and save it and preview it again, and now it will show at the bottom, at the very bottom, the company number. I think that's pretty good now. It might be nice if that company number was centered in the middle. It looks a bit. Normally, if you're VAT registered, this particular invoice template is okay. You could actually put VAT figures in here as well. You could have a VAT. You could put your VAT amount in here, and then have the VAT. You can have the VAT amount in here, and then make a total here as well, including VAT. So these could be all excluding VAT prices, you can have the VAT amount here for all of this amount right here, and then do a subtotal down here, and then you could put a VAT amount or your VAT registration number on here as well. You can use the same template but for VAT registration. Here's an example. It was for really small startup businesses, so you may or may not have a VAT number. I might do a separate tutorial on VAT for VAT registered businesses, but that's a bit more complicated and it will be quite a long tutorial, so we'll assume that you're not VAT registered at this point. So I'm going to close this and save it. And one last thing I want to do, let's just close this now. So when we go into our invoices folder, our master template, we've got this master invoice here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to select it and copy it, and I'm going to paste it into here, pressing Ctrl V. So I've gone to, let's just do that one more time. Let's delete this. So I go into the master template, I click on the file, I press Ctrl C to copy, and then I come outside, so I'll go back a folder and press Ctrl V to paste. And we're going to rename this now. So we're going to go to our original invoice tracker, and we're going to make this first example invoice here. Let's make this one. So what we do is, I'm going to right align this to make it a little bit easier, and I need to rename this file. It can't be called invoice tracker, it doesn't make any sense. It needs to be named something logical. So what we'll do is we will first of all have let's put the invoice number, so DCP 2014-001. That's this invoice number here. Then we're going to put a dash in, and we're going to put the date, the 1st of the 1st 2014. And then we're going to put another dash in, and we're going to put in the company name that we're sending the invoice to, ABC Company. I have to do that again. So DCP 2014-001, the 1st of the 1st 2014, and it was ABC Company. That's already in use. Let's try that again. It's saying that the file was in use, but bit silly, ain't I? I mean, I'm editing the wrong file. So we need to go into invoices, and it's this template we want to rename. My bad. So it's this file here we want to rename. Yeah, we want to call this DCP 2014-001, the 1st of the 1st 2014, and it's going to be ABC Company. So that's okay. This is actually, this was a copy of this invoice template, but we're going to use this as a master file to make now a new invoice for this particular customer. So if we let's just reshape this spreadsheet so we can see all the data. So we took the invoice number and we made that the first part, we put a dash in there, and we took the date and we made that the second part, and we put another dash, and then we put ABC Company. This is the company name. So that's going to really help us to identify, sooner or later, you know, when you keep using this system, you understand what invoice it was, what date you sent it, and who you sent it to. That's all you need to know. It's quite important, but you need to know that. So when I open up this file now, it's a copy of the original master template. So I can do anything I want to this file. I can change it, edit it. The date happens to be correct. The invoice number happens to be correct, but if it was a different invoice, you'll change this invoice number, change the invoice number, change the date. But because we use this as an example from the master template, it's correct. It happens to be ABC Company, so these details we could say were correct. But if it's a new company, then you need to change these details to the relevant company. You may also want to put a telephone number, a contact number in this template. It's up to you. For the billing company, you may want to put a contact number in there, but it's your choice. Sometimes it's nice to have that because when you open up the invoice, if it hasn't been paid, you can call them straight away, but you should have those details somewhere else as well. If you notice though, on this particular job, we only did one job. We just did a logo design for a leaflet distribution company. So let's copy this text. Control C to copy. You can right click copy, and we're going to paste it into here. And we can delete all of these. We don't need this data. This was just temporary data, we could say. So we've got logo design for leaflet distribution company. We did one job. And it cost 125. And we type in 125, 1 times 125 equals subtotal 125, and this is the subtotal of the invoice. That's all you need to do. You change the billing details, the delivery details if it's applicable, you change the invoice number and the invoice date, you change the description, and everything else is going to stay the same. The banking details that you want them to make payment to, your company number, this is your company number, the payment terms, the logo, the address, all that stuff is going to stay the same. We're going to save this. We're going to make a PDF. We're going to click PDF here. And we're going to save this one more time. And we're going to close it. We're going to end up with two files. We're going to end up with the master file. So this is, we call this the master file of this invoice, and the PDF. The PDF file you can send to your customer in an email. You can just email this directly to them. Let's just open it with Adobe Acrobat. So here, you can attach this in an email, send it to your customer, they can print it out. You've got a copy of it, they've got a copy of it, they can print it out. And you can print it out for yourself and keep a copy in your records. And that's pretty much how you're going to generate your invoice. Now you have a real invoice, which is relevant to this particular row here. And this, all of this data in here, you would have created all of these invoices. You would have created one by one. You would have created one by one each invoice separately. So you would have had loads of invoices in here. You would have had invoice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, going all the way down to invoice number 33. So just as a quick example, I'm going to do one more, but we're gonna assume that it's a new company and it's a new invoice. So in here, we're going to put a new date. We're going to call it the 10th of the 2nd, 2014, and it's going to be, we're going to drag this down one. So when we drag it down, it makes it invoice number 34. There's no date in here, there's no payment type, and there's no payment reference because it hasn't been paid. We're making the invoice right now. One good thing to do is click on this 35, so it highlights the whole row, and we can just make this blue. Make it blue. And we're going to say that this was, we're going to say that in this particular job, or this particular invoice, we did 2 different jobs, just to make it a little bit more easier for you to understand. We're going to say we did a website design, and we also did a business card design, and it was for a new company called, I don't know, Hardwood Flooring. We did some work for a company called Hardwood Flooring, and the website design and the business card design combined together, the total amount that we needed to build a company, let's say, was 895. So that's include. So we can say the website was 800 and the business card design was 95, for example. Website design and business card design, the total of those 2 jobs was 895. 800 for the website and 95 for the business card. And we're going to say that it's not being paid yet. And what I'm going to do, we're going to have to use we're going to have to make an assumption at the moment, and we're going to have to assume that this is the first invoice and this is the first invoice in here, and we're going to have to assume that we did all of these invoices already, all of these from invoice number 1 all the way down to invoice number 33. So really the next invoice in this section here will be invoice number 34. I'm not going to do 33 invoices just to show you them, but you need to assume that 33 of them will be listed in here, and this is going to be invoice number 34. So to make this, I'm going to right click on this invoice here, this open office document. I'm going to right click on it, drag it down, holding down the right mouse button, and I'm going to copy here. it's going to make a copy of this invoice. You can see this is the original one below it and this is the copy. I'm going to right click on it and rename it, and I'm going to change this to, if we look carefully, it's 34. So it will be 34 in here, and the company name was Hardwood Flooring, and this copy element, we can get rid of it, we don't need that. And one other thing that's wrong in here, we can see it was DCP 2014-034, DCP 2014-034, but we need to change this date. The date was the 10th of the 2nd, so in here we need to change it to the 10th of the 2nd. So we're going to open this up, and there's a few things we need to change. We need to change this company number to Hardwood Flooring, and you can we would normally change this address. I'm just going to leave it as it is, as just as an example, but you'll need to change that address there, and we need to change the company name in here as well, and you need to change this address if it's applicable, and we need to change the invoice number. So we're going to click on this cell here, row A, cell A. We're going to double click on it, and we're going to move across and change it to invoice 34. We're going to change this date. The reason why I put the invoice number up here and the date here is when I'm making the edits to this invoice here, I can see DCP 2014-034, DCP 2014-034, the date. I don't have to keep looking back at this spreadsheet. I can see it was the 10th of the 2nd, 2014. It makes it a little bit easier 10th when you're doing these updates here. And in here we said it was for website design and business card design, so we can highlight this and copy it. We can paste it into here, but we're going to do two separate values. We're going to do website design. We're going to cut this and paste it down here and get rid of this and we're going to say website design quantity 1, and it was 800. And we're going to say business card design. Let's say we did 2 examples, but each example in fact, we'll make this value, to make life a little bit easier, we'll make this 795. And we can say we did 2 example business cards, and each one cost £50. And we're going to select this cell here. We're going to drag this down from here, from this right down here, to make it 100. 2 times 50 is 100. 1 times 795 is 795. Our total was 895 here in our spreadsheet, and our invoice total is 895. That's it. This invoice is done. We can save it. We can make a PDF file. We can save it again. And we've got 2 invoice examples in here, but in this, if it was really done properly, we would have 34 in total. So we take this invoice, we open it, we check it. We should always double check it to make sure the date is correct in here. The invoice number is correct, the invoice date is correct, the billing details is correct, the values are correct in here, the subtotal is correct. Really, up to this point, everything else in here should have been checked before, and this is all correct. You're not really editing anything down here, and you'll make sure your address details are correct. Once they're correct first time around, you never need to check that again. So let's assume that we sent this invoice to our customer. We attached it in an email, we asked the customer to make payment, they received the email, they received the invoice, they printed it out, and we said that they can pay within 30 days, and let's just say that they paid it in 14 days. So you go and look at your bank statement, 14 days later you see the payment in your account, and you sent it out on the 10th of the 2nd, and 14 days later they made the payment, or let's say 7 days later to make life a little bit easier. So 7 days later the customer made the payment. So you sent it out on the 10th of the 2nd, and they paid on the 17th of the 2nd, 2014. You're looking at your bank statement, it says they paid on the 7th of the 2nd, 2014. They paid it via bank transfer, so we can type in bank transfer here, and they put a reference, and they put something like invoice, they put something like DCP invoice 034. That's what they put as the reference of the payment. because it was invoice number 34 and it was for your company. It happens to be called DCP, but it'll be your company in there, your acronym of your company. And we need to make this a yes because it's been paid. Let's just keep that consistent, uppercase. And then we can now select, let's just make this full screen. We can select that row. We can make it green. And we know that it's been paid. That's it. So now we have two documents to work from. This document is the one that I fill out first of all. So I fill out this document first and I put in the details that I want to send to the customer. I put in what type of job it was, I put in the invoice number, the date that I want to send the invoice to them, or the date of the invoice itself, the company that I'm sending it to, the amount that I want to send, and I mark it as no because they haven't paid it. I haven't even made the invoice yet. I just put the details in first. Then I go and make a copy of the last invoice that I created. So if it's hardwood flooring, I make a copy of this one, drag it down, copy it here, and then I rename the file. I change the invoice number, I change that to 35 as an example. I change the date, so it might have been the 14th of the 2nd, and it might have been for the same company as invoice. It might not be a different company, but it's a different job that you did. And I hit enter, and when you do that, it's always going to order them by invoice number. So this one will always sit at the bottom because it's 34 is the previous one, and then 35 is a bigger number, so it will sit one below. I'm going to delete that. We don't really want that there because we don't really have an invoice 35 here in this spreadsheet. But I just continuously creating those invoices, sending them to the customers as PDFs. Once they've made payment, I come back into this spreadsheet 7 days later or whenever it might be, and I mark it off and I'll keep track of it that way. Now I can keep track of how many invoices I've sent out, who I sent them out to, what the jobs were for, how my customer paid, when they paid, and it helps me to work out who hasn't paid as well and who has paid. All the blue ones haven't paid. On Monday when I get back into work, let's say it's Friday today, on Monday when I get back into work, I can go and chase all these customers and say, look, you haven't paid these invoices, I sent them out, it's been more than 30 days or more than 7 days or whatever the terms were on that particular payment. So I hope that makes sense. You've got two separate documents now. You've got one to do your invoice tracking to see who's paid and when they've paid and how they've paid and what the payment was for. And you've got a separate document which is going to be your invoice template, and this is what you're going to use to actually create a real invoice. You can print this out and send it in the post, or you can send it out via email. I send mine out via email, it's just a lot easier. So that's two documents we've completed so far. In the third part of this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you a different spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet is going to be used to keep track of your expenditure, what you're paying out for. So you're paying out for your internet access, your telephone calls, your traveling costs, your I don't know, your printer ink, your printing paper, if you bought a keyboard or a mouse for your computer. These are all expenses in your business, and we want a spreadsheet to keep track of these expenses as well. So this spreadsheet represents all of the money coming in. You need a separate spreadsheet to represent all of the money going out. Okay, I hope this all made sense. If you've got any questions and you're not too sure about anything, feel free to contact me on any of the social networks. I'm going to be putting this video on YouTube, on Facebook, Google+, Twitter. If you catch the video on any of those locations, feel free to ask me a question and I'll try and help you to make it a bit clearer if you're not understood anything. Okay, look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial. Have a good day.